Economics is really the study of life. While we often think of economics as money and things, these always fit into a much broader picture of life. Now, our purpose in this lesson is to discuss prices. What are prices? And how are prices created? Here's a picture of some apples on one side and dollar coins on the other. The number of apples is how many apples are for sale. In this example here, just 5 apples. On the other side, there are 5 coins, each equal to $1. That makes $5. This is all the money that is available to buy apples. Now, the quantity of apples, which is called the supply, is balanced against the quantity of dollar coins, which is also called the demand for apples. We'll have more to say on supply and demand in another lesson. But here I am using the word demand to mean monetary demand. That's just a way of saying how much money is available to buy apples. Maybe the real demand for apples is higher, but some people don't have the money to buy them. But here it is the total amount of money available to buy apples. If you look carefully at the numbers, 5 apples and 5 coins, you can see there is a relationship called a ratio between the two numbers. A ratio is a relationship between two items. The two items need to have a sameness about them. In this instance, the sameness is in the quantity of the items. In other words, the sameness is a number. We're talking about the number of apples and the number of dollar coins. The ratio tells you how many of one thing there is for another. It can be expressed like this, 5 for 5, or written 5 for 5, like this, 5 with a colon between it and then the other 5. This is a way of saying that you can get 5 of one thing in exchange for 5 of another. In the case of our apples and dollars, it can be expressed as a 5 for 5 ratio, which is the same as saying a 1 for 1 ratio. Often the word to, T-O, is used when we express a ratio. So the ratio is 5 to 5 or 1 to 1. When the ratio is between money and another item, it allows us to express it as a price. I can get 5 apples for $5, or I can say it like this, I can get 1 apple for $1. Or the way we would normally say that, apples cost $1 each. But there are other examples. Here's another example where we have 3 apples on the left-hand side and 5 coins on the other. In this case, or in this instance, the ratio is 3 to 5. That tells you that you can buy 3 apples for $5 or $5. Here's another example, 5 apples on one side and $4 on the other. That means the ratio is 5 to 4. That tells you that you can buy 5 apples for $4. How many times can the number 4 be divided by the number of 5? The answer is 0.8 times, or in monetary terms, this means it's 0.8 of $1 or 80 cents for each apple. The ratio between money and another item, as I said, is expressed as a price. I can get 5 apples for $5, or I can say it like this. I can get 1 apple for $1. Now in real life, because the apples are different sizes and qualities, they will not all be sold equally for $1. The large red apple might get $1.75, while the small red apple only gets a quarter or 25 cents. But when one of the items is money, the ratio in this instance expresses the average price between all the apples and all the money in the ratio. If it's a 5 for 5 ratio or 5 to 4 ratio, it means I can get 5 apples for $4. If it's a 1-to-1 ratio, it means I can get 1 apple for $1. If it's a 10-to-15 ratio, it means I can get 10 apples for $15. And from there we can work out the price of what one of those apples might be. Now here you see the ratio is 1-to-1 expressed in pictorial form. 1 apple equals $1, or you could always say it the other way around, $1 equals 1 apple. But what happens when the ratio changes? What if there was more money available to buy the same number of 5 apples? Here it is in picture form. Maybe there are more buyers wanting to buy apples. Or it may be that there are not more buyers, but the existing buyers found more money to use when they're buying apples. Now what's happened to the ratio between apples and dollars? Can you tell? It could be expressed like this, 5-to-10. Or by dividing these two numbers by a common denominator, the number 5, then the ratio is 1-to-2. That is, I can buy 1 apple for $2. If all the apples were sold for $10, then the average price is going to be $2 for each apple. Compared to the first example of a 1-to-1 ratio with apples and dollars, this means the price now has doubled. The new price is $2 an apple. You can guess what the people selling the apples will be very, very happy. Now they get $2 for every apple they sold. But what about the people buying the apples? They now have to pay $2 instead of $1. Will they be happy about this? I don't think so. But why did the price go up? Because there was more money demand offering to buy the apples. And the sellers of the apples found this out by putting their prices up. I'm sure the buyers were a lot happier when the price was just $1. What was the average price? $1. But just as the quantity of money can change, so too can the number of apples being sold. Now there are more apples. Maybe more farmers are selling apples. Or maybe the farmers who are selling apples had a bumper season and more apples grew on their trees. So they bring to the market all the apples that they have and offer them to the people who have money to use to buy apples. What's the new ratio? The new ratio now is 10-to-5, or we can say 2-to-1. That's 10 apples and only $5. And that means that the average price, of course, is just a little different. In this case, the price hasn't gone up higher, it's gone lower. So if we have a 2-to-1 ratio, the average price is going to be 50 cents an apple. Now, which price would you prefer? 50 cents an apple or $2 an apple? You've seen how the price can change depending on the changes between the supply and the demand for apples. And so in this lesson you learn that the economic problem is one of supply and demand of scarce resources, in this case apples. Now, is our economic problem not enough money, or was it not enough apples? What you saw that if the money supply is increased while the amount of apples stays the same, the price goes up. But if the number of apples increases while the number of dollars stays the same, the price went down. Now all the buyers are better off if there are more apples because this will make apples cheaper. All the sellers would prefer it if there is more money because they can get $2 instead of $1 for each apple. But here's an important point. Prices must be flexible. That is, they must be able to move up or down. So you have learned something else that is very important. You have learned that the economic problem is scarcity. That is, there's not enough apples for everyone to buy. And if there were more apples, prices would go down and down and down, and more people could buy apples. It is true that if the prices of apples go up, then the farmers will want to grow more apples. And if they do, they will eventually help make apples cheaper because there will be more apples for people to buy. Prices exist when there is a shortage of something. If there were millions of apples for sale and only a few dollars available to buy them, the price of apples would be $0 or maybe just a penny or two. If you're outside enjoying the sunshine, you don't have to pay for fresh air. There's so much of it around that it's free. But if you go inside a closed building, then you may have to pay to get fresh air pumped into that building. That's because inside the building there is a shortage of air. In the next lesson you'll learn about inflation and how inflation changes prices. Before that, however, go to the written material for this lesson and complete the worksheet and then take the test.